Love by Chance is a pretty good film, though I will be honest, I don't completely love one of our protagonists. This was released in 2016. It's directed by Gary Harvey and is written by Brian L. Ross and Karen Berger and stars Beau Garrett as Claire and Benjamin Ayres as Eric. We also have Brenda Strong as Helen. And Helen is Claire's mother, and she is meddling in her daughter's love life in a very really cringy, awkward way. I won't spoil it by saying exactly what she does, but it's really bizarre. And one thing leads to another, and she ends up meeting Eric and convinces Eric to accidentally bump into her daughter, and then, obviously, if he likes her, to start dating her. The fact that Eric goes along with this in itself is quite strange, but obviously, if he didn't, the film wouldn't work. So he agrees, and he accidentally bumps into Claire, and the relationship begins, and things are going really well between them, but Claire has no idea that her mother was matchmaking and that it wasn't just fate that brought her together with Eric. And there's this constant heaviness in the air of this threat of the truth being revealed in a way that's quite suspenseful, and I was genuinely desperate to find out what would happen, if or how she'd find out, how she would react. And to be honest, the way she reacted to the whole situation is not what I have a problem with. I have a problem with something else she did, where she kind of behaved a bit like a brat. And thankfully it was quite towards the end of the film, so I didn't mind her for most of it. But for the last maybe 15 minutes of the film, I just didn't like her. I couldn't care less about her anymore because she displayed a very self-centered, kind of entitled personality. But I will discuss what I mean by that with a spoiler warning at the end, and I'll go into a little bit more detail. But for the most part, she was likeable, but it did leave me with a bad taste in my mouth to finish the film. Eric, on the other hand, I really like. That's not to say I agree with what he did, although I do feel like he was very much forced into it by Helen. And as much as I don't agree with Helen's actions, I think she's a really likeable character, as is Sam, Claire's father, played by Garwin Sanford. So all of the characters are really likeable. Claire is mostly likeable, and the story is moderately eventful. Mostly it's this suspense about this secret that Eric and Helen are keeping. There is a subplot involving Claire. Claire owns a bakery and business isn't doing very well. So they're trying to get this reviewer to come along, a reviewer whose identity is secret. And if you like rom-coms with a bit about food, there are some nice sounding dishes in this. There's some olive bread that's mentioned a few times that made my mouth water a little bit. So that part of it, I wasn't emotionally invested in it. I didn't really care about the bakery, but at the same time, I got some satisfaction out of it, so I can't complain too much. If you like rom-coms, then I'd say it's definitely worth giving a go. The performances were really good. The on-screen chemistry with our romantic leads was very believable. And I think there are some good lessons in here about meddling as well. Don't do it is basically the message. But it's definitely a decent film, but just one moment really ruined it for me. It didn't ruin the whole film. It ruined my opinion of Claire and something that she did and the way she behaved. And I don't know if I'm overthinking it, but I just wasn't expecting it, and when she did it, I just stopped liking her. So it meant that my emotional investment kind of disappeared for the last 10-15 minutes. So I guess I'll explain what exactly I'm talking about. So I have nothing else to say about the film other than it's enjoyable, I liked it, I definitely recommend it. So big spoilers from now as I discuss what happened. So towards the end of the film, Claire has obviously found out. I won't say how she found out, I won't completely spoil it, but Eric's trying to get her to talk to him, and she agrees to meet him for a cup of coffee. And when she walks in to meet him, she sees that Eric's previous date, a woman he'd dated very briefly, was walking away. Now she could see that there was nothing romantic between them. He wasn't touching her, he wasn't hugging her goodbye, there was no physical contact between them. Yet she took one look at this other woman, saw Eric talking to another woman, and basically stormed off and had a temper tantrum and refused to acknowledge his existence. Why? Because this woman walked in to meet him and he did nothing to show any affection. What did he do wrong? Why did he deserve that? He didn't. She just had a temper tantrum because he dared to even speak to another woman. So after that, I just stopped liking her because, sure, I can understand why she wouldn't want to speak to him. I get that. She's annoyed that he lied to her, or I guess kept a secret from her. But after she'd agreed to meet him, why would she walk away just because his 2 times dated ex happened to instigate a meeting with him? He didn't reciprocate any of her affection. She had no reason to believe he did, and yet she still had a little tantrum over it. I say she had a tantrum, she walked out. She spat her dummy out and abandoned the situation because the world wasn't revolving around her in that moment. So after that point, I stopped liking her and I couldn't care less what happened to her at all. And I feel like that moment really ruined what could have otherwise been a really, really great film. But unfortunately, it meant that she had a very unlikable personality. As I said, I can understand her being annoyed at him, but if she'd already agreed to meet him, why would she be annoyed just because he was talking to another woman? A woman he'd previously dated but showed no affection with. Doesn't make any sense unless you're entitled. So don't love her as a character, but other than that, Love by Chance is a really good film.